President Nicolás Maduro in Caracas this week. The arrests of several Citgo executives were seen by some as a further effort to consolidate his power. CreditReutersCARACAS, Venezuela. The administration of President Nicolás Maduro called it a necessary move to ferret out putrid corruption and end impunity. Outside the government, however, many observers saw it as yet another strongarm move by Mr. Maduro to consolidate power. Whatever the motivation, the arrests this week of 6 senior executives at Citgo, the United States refining subsidiary of Venezuela's state-owned oil company, have purged the American company's leadership and stunned the energy sector. The move, announced on Tuesday by Venezuela's Attorney General, was the latest in an inquiry that has led to the arrests in recent months of about 50 people associated with the vital national oil industry. The purge has come as the state-owned company, Petróleos de Venezuela, or PDVSA, teeters on the brink of default on billions of dollars in bond debt amid the nation's worsening economic crisis. Attorney General Tarek William Saab said the 6 Citgo executives, including the acting president, faced charges of embezzlement and other crimes in connection with a refinancing deal worth as much as $4 billion that had not been authorized by the appropriate authorities in the Maduro administration. He said the officials had offered the subsidiary as a guarantee, putting it at risk. The deal, he insisted, amounted to corruption of the most putrid kind. 4 of the men are United States citizens, The Wall Street Journal reported. Corruption has been a chronic and well-known problem for years at PDVSA and has helped to undercut its operations and profits. But speculation abounded on Wednesday, among political analysts, oil industry executives and members of Venezuela's political opposition, as to whether the latest round of arrests, along with the dozens of others in the past few months, were mostly a high-profile effort by Mr. Maduro to reinforce his power on the cusp of a presidential election year. "My perception is that Maduro feels very strong," said Dimitris Pantoulas, a political consultant in Caracas, listing a number of the president's achievements this year, including his party's domination of regional elections, which helped to neutralize the opposition. "It's a moment to show to the public that he's a good leader and can even go against the people in his own party," Mr. Pantoulas said. The purge brought to mind recent events in Saudi Arabia, where the Crown Prince ordered the arrest of dozens of the kingdom's elite in a move that opponents called a political shakeup in the guise of a corruption investigation. Riza Grata Estargo, director of Latin America research at Eurasia Group, a political risk consultancy, said that internal rivalries in the Maduro administration had grown more intense as factions had to compete for declining revenue from the oil sector, the foundation of the Venezuelan economy. As that pie shrinks, there is just less to go around, so you see a power play over who gets to control those resources, she said. Many of those PDVSA managers arrested in recent months were seen as close to Rafael Ramirez, a former energy minister and head of PDVSA. While Mr. Ramirez has served as Mr. Maduro's ambassador to the United Nations since 2014, analysts say that tensions between them are deep and long-standing. They were rivals to succeed President Hugo Chavez. A PDVSA station in Caracas. Credit Marco Reuters Mr. Ramirez has displayed some defensiveness in recent days on his Twitter account, writing on Monday, "Those who attack me should think a little, just a little, because Chavez had me at his side for 12 years. A close associate of Mr. Ramirez was arrested last month in Spain as part of a bribery and money laundering investigation by the United States Homeland Security Department. The associate, Rafael Reiter, a former chief of PDVSA's corporate security, was one of 4 former officials who have been investigated by American prosecutors as part of a broadening inquiry of PDVSA stemming from allegedly fraudulent contracts dispensed for bribes. But Francisco J. Monaldi, a Venezuelan energy expert at Rice University, said that the latest round of arrests include people who were also close to the current PDVSA chief, Nelson Martinez, who served as the head of Citgo at the beginning of the year and is close to Mr. Maduro. How can they be negotiating alone without the direct knowledge of Nelson Martinez? Mr. Monaldi wondered. You have corruption everywhere, but clearly only a few are targeted. Why did this happen now? It's hard to understand. While the opaqueness of the Maduro administration left many scratching their heads over the latest arrests, there was some consensus that the move, coupled with the departure of many managers through firings or indictments in recent years, had gutted the company of much of its experienced talent at the very moment when it needs all it can get. Since early November, PDVSA has been effectively in default on its $26.5 billion in unsecured bonds, and it faces claims of $60 billion in missed payments from its contractors and service companies that drill and maintain its fields. Trump administration sanctions imposed in August limit the ability of American financial institutions to loan money to PDVSA, and prohibit Citgo from sending dividends back to Caracas. And with its oil fields losing pressure, critical equipment at its ports and processing plants in disrepair, and bondholders poised to seize its considerable foreign assets, there seems to be little room for recovery. With the largest oil reserves in the world, Venezuela was once one of the prime producers in the world, and a leader in OPEC. But it now produces only 1.9 million barrels a day, down from 2.4 million barrels a year ago, and down from the 3.2 million barrels it produced when Mr. Chavez took power nearly 2 decades ago. Production is falling by 20,000 barrels a day a month after month, with the company in a death spiral. PDVSA still accounts for nearly all the country's export earnings, roughly half of government revenues, and about a quarter of the shrinking gross domestic product. PDVSA has also been an important foreign policy arm of the government, by sending large volumes of cheap oil to China, Cuba, Nicaragua, and other countries. Citgo has been a relatively bright light in a terribly dark landscape for the company, continuing to earn money even though its profitability has declined. Mr. Monaldi said the Maduro administration has been pragmatic enough to leave Citgo pretty much out of the politics of Venezuela. That strategy may have ended this week.